Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quigliano, and Cliff.
Hi, you're listening to the fantasyfootballedge.co.uk podcast. My name is Mills. It is game week 16, and I'm joined this week, I'm very happy to say, by Quigliano. Hello, Quigliano.
Hello, mate. Yeah, I've risen from my deathbed, haven't I? I've not been too well.
No.
So,
what's been up with the great Quigliano?
Bout of flu, I think, mate. But I'm over the worst of it. I've made myself available for your podcast.
Well, it's great that you've made yourself available. No JP this week. He's been a mainstay for the last few weeks, and he's been coming in with a few decent tips. Quigliano, what are your thoughts on his Ashley Young steal or no deal? Because you nearly went no deal on that when he threw it out, and since then he's got an assist and 2 goals.
Well, I backed him, didn't I? So I made the right choice there. And obviously,
I think you backed him because I backed him, really.
I mean, JP is obviously a lot cheaper to have on air for you, so that's why I think he's been a mainstay. He does work for a quarter of the fee that I do. So
Don't tell him that.
It's good business sense on your part to sort of get him in as a regular.
Okay. Well, more on that later. We're gonna talk quite a few things this week in terms of game week 16. We're going to be talking about the derby games for Man United and City, and obviously the Liverpool and Everton derby as well. All the usual Gary's, side tips, Xabi's coming up, and we're also going to talk about the announcement of the double game week 22. We'll probably talk about that in podcast extra time. And Quigliano, you'll be glad to know that I'll be back with Stat Attack today as well as some questions from the fans.
Sounds a bit busy. You said this is going to be a quick one, but
we'll see how it goes. We'll try not to take up too much of people's time. How was game week 15 for you, Quigliano? I think you had a slightly better one than I did. Mine was okay, but nothing to shout about. But what about yourself?
I mean, actually, I looked at it the other day, and it was more a handful of players performed well for me. The rest of the team itself didn't do too well. I've kept the faith, if people can believe this. I've had Firmino in there since game week 1.
Wow.
That's including having played my wild card. So finally, he's rewarded me. So that was obviously good. Captain Morata, which was, if your captain scores and gets some bonus points, you're happy with that. So those players kind of saved me, but not having Hazard at the minute is a major concern for me, and that's something that might need to be looked at sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. I think I've already put Hazard in actually for this week because he's just looking at those fixtures for Chelsea. I talked about this on air last week with JP. They've got such favourable fixtures between now and like the middle of Feb. You've got to capitalise on that. Chelsea are going to go on a good run now. They didn't start well, did they, in that game against Newcastle? They went a goal behind, but they showed spirit, they showed character to come back, and actually in the end won it pretty comfortably 3-1. My only concern, I've got Morata as well, but my concern with Morata is I look at him and I think I talked to you about this the other day, Quigliano, on the phone, and I just don't think he looks like a quality player. I think most of his goals this season have come, from his head, which is fine. There's no issue with that. But I just watch him in games, and I just feel like he's not contributing enough. I just feel he's never going to go on and score 2 or 3. I know he has scored a hat-trick this season. I don't think he'll do it again.
I disagree in terms of he's not a good player. I think actually, when I watched him against Liverpool, I saw something. I thought I rate how he's moving, his contribution there. I think it's a matter of time before he does get more goals. That's why I put him in.
Well, he's actually the top point scorer in terms of attackers at the moment. He's risen to the top of that now. Another blank for Harry Kane. And he's actually blanked quite a few times.
That'll be short-lived.
He's blanked a lot of
That'll
times,
be short-lived.
He has blanked a lot.
Well, say it a few more times. He's blanked a lot, but I'm telling you that's going to come to an end this week. He's captain potential this week.
Oh, right, okay. Well, let's dive straight into the Gary of the Week then, Quigliano, because that kind of ties in with that.
Well, we've mentioned him, so it's Hazard. He's always, probably season after season, the one where you like, get him in your team, must-have player, and he's returning to that type of form, beating players at will, scoring goals, obviously has penalty responsibility as well, which is a help for him. I think he is going to be proving himself to be one of the must-have players for probably this point on until something else happens and someone else steps up. But definitely Hazard this week. A decent fixture against West Ham, who I think will tighten up under Moyes, but still, I think it's it's Hazard's week.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it, with West Ham? Because we saw them absolutely capitulate at Everton 4-0. And then they went to Man City and actually played pretty well. Yes, they were under siege for a lot of that game, but on the counter-attack they looked good. But let's be honest, that's how most teams have gone and played at Man City. So a little bit of, fighting spirit and a better performance from the Hammers there. Do you see any kind of result for them? I'm guessing obviously not. Do you see them scoring against Chelsea?
Well, yeah, because Newcastle scored and early on. So I definitely think there's always a goal now in Chelsea in terms of conceding. So I wouldn't put it against West Ham. I mean, that's going to be a Chelsea win there. I'd be very confident of that. I do think Hazard's going to contribute. So let's focus on the Gary. He's going to get the points. That's all we're here for.
Okay, I like it. And let's hear from the Xabi Alonso.
Right, the long shot this week. I was scratching around, to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. There's a few fixtures where you're thinking, well, what is probably somebody a bit of an outsider? And I do fancy Crystal Palace to start improving. Hodgson's been there a while now. I think Zaha is going to benefit from maybe having Benteke as a bit of a foil up there. So I think Zaha against Bournemouth is going to be your long shot this week.
Okay, it's an interesting one. That is, it's kind of the forgotten man in the last few games. Crystal Palace not scoring a lot of goals, but I agree with you. At some point, things are going to turn around there, and I think once they start scoring, actually, I think that they will bag a few because they've got quite a potent strike force there, and they've got a decent midfield. So, yeah, and they are keeping clean sheets at the moment. So, while you're talking about that, though, Quigliano, I'm going to give you a little stat, a little prelude to my stat attack feature that's going to come in later. I said one last week to JP. That away from home, they'd failed to score in the last 9 games. It's now 10. But actually, in all games, last Premier League games, Crystal Palace have failed to score in 15 of their last 20 in the league. That's unreal. 75% of their games. That's why it is a long shot. So it's going to be a very long shot this week. Have you got any side tips for us, Quigliano?
Have got some side tips. Mentioned him, you've slagged him off. I doubt you'd say it to his face. Well, Morata, okay. I think Chelsea look decent. Those are the danger players, Morata and Hazard. As you mentioned, a man that's maybe he's overperformed and in the sort of early season phase, but Richarlison, I think this week has an okay fixture. I know you've probably got a stat about Burnley.
I have got a stat about Burnley. They've only conceded
itching, aren't you?
3 goals at home all season. Conceded. They've only conceded 3 goals at home all season. I think that's 7 games. One more.
He's interrupted me again. But if they concede...
You invited it. You invited the stat.
And again, this is unbelievable. He's going to score. There we go. I'm just nipping that one out there.
Who, Richarlison?
He will score this weekend. Okay. That's my prediction. Okay. I think the best fixture for most of the teams this weekend is the Spurs-Stoke fixture. I've mentioned that Kane is going to return to form this week. I know home isn't really any benefit to Spurs with sort of this Wembley bit of a jinx that they have. But I do think the Spurs team are where you're going to benefit from some points this week. I think Ali, Son, Eriksson are also in that mix. It's up to you which combination you're going to go for. Finally, I'll wrap this up quickly. Vardy, I think, has been consistent. I know you've got him in your draft team, and I think that's been a very good signing for you. He's just a dripping tap that, as a fairly cheap player, is getting points regularly, just whether it's an assist or a goal. Not a bad shout. I think Ramsey at Arsenal is a good option for somebody maybe looking for the cheaper option, because Sanchez, despite being world class, hasn't probably produced as much as he should for that price. So you maybe want a cheaper option in Ramsey. And finally, you can go to sleep after this. Firmino, Coutinho and Salah, I think they will do well against Everton, despite Big Sam's influence. Okay. There you go. That's
Appreciate that, Quigliano. And actually, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Liverpool and Everton and Man United Man City game right after this short break.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast, giving you the edge over your rivals.
Okay, Quigliano, you mentioned Liverpool. You particularly mentioned Coutinho. Firmino and Salah. Is that right? Is that the three that you mentioned?
I think I said Firmino. I didn't put a H in there, but for Firmino.
So, yeah, talk about that game first of all. You think that's going to be pretty comfortable for Liverpool, do you? Even despite Everton's latest, resurgence of late and the influence of Big Sam, you still think Liverpool are going to do them over?
Well, I've got to, because I've got 3 playing Liverpool players in my team. So if I don't think that,
so who have you got? You've got Firmino.
I've got Firmino, Salah, and unfortunately, I put Gomez in when Klopp decided that he wanted to play Trent Alexander instead of Gomez, and then Gomez was ill as well. So I've kind of been robbed of some points there. But yeah, 3 Liverpool players. I looked at that the other day and was like, how has that happened?
I do see goals in that game. I think it'll be an interesting one. And then, interestingly, no side tips for Man United or City players this week. And this was a feature last week. JP didn't really touch too heavily on Man City. Obviously, the fixture is probably what's making you omit a lot of Man City players in this one. But do you see this being a low-scoring affair, or do you see both teams going for it?
Well, I definitely don't see both teams going for it. Not with Mourinho. Most teams have already got some Man City coverage. So it's kind of like in terms of tipping, there's no standout there. I wouldn't like to be saying, if you haven't got him in your team, get him in your team for this week. It's too hard to predict how that's going to go. That's why I've avoided it. I mean, a lot of people is kind of, I'm hearing, thinking that Man United are going to actually do City because they've the goals have dropped off slightly, but they're still winning. Still, how many won in a row? Stat attack there?
13. And something's got to give because, in fact, I'll just do this one now. Stat attack's going to be very short this week. I've given them all out. Man United have won their last 8 at home, and City have won their last 13. So something's got to give. They can't both win. So something's got to give somewhere. It will be interesting to see.
They could draw. They
could, but that blows both stats out the window. So it's one of those. I agree with you. Well, I don't know if it's your opinion, but Man United could go and get a good result there. But I think missing Pogba is huge. That to me, that completely changes the way Man United approach it. Because what Pogba gives them is someone who can go from defence to attack in the blink of an eye. If they don't have that player, they will just defend, and the transition from defence to attack is too slow, and City will be organised and defensive. So it could go either way. I think you get an early goal, you could see a lot of goals. I think if you don't, particularly if Man United get an early goal, then I think it could be shut up shop. But if City get an early goal, then we could have goals. It's an interesting one. Certainly not one where I think I'll be putting a lot of faith this week. I don't think I'll be looking to captain picks with those teams.
And you just got the danger of the Aguero, Jesus saga, and who's going to get game time. It's just
I've given
too
up
much
on
of a
that
risk
now.
there with City.
Absolutely. Particularly in terms of captain, that's gone for me. They're not even options as captains now, unless the other one's injured. Okay, Quigliano. I'm going to just close out this part of the podcast with a question. It's actually come from someone's put this question on fantasyfootballedge.co.uk. He's put, "Hi Mill," I think that's me. "Thanks for the tip. I have Sané in my team and 0.5 left in the bank. Should I transfer him out? Who should I replace him with? I already have Hazard and Salad. Thank you." I think he means Salah. Thank you. That's from Khan Kit.
Okay.
So, should he transfer out Sané? And if so, who should he replace him with? My advice back was not to transfer him out. But
I mean, well, you come to advice from a man who trusted Ben Dinnery's injury tips in terms of Ozil. I actually took him out the week when he got 17 points and put Sané in, who Sané then didn't play.
Surely you're not calling out the great Ben Dinnery. A lot of respect for Ben Dinnery on this podcast. Always has been.
Yeah, I mean, actually, in fairness to him, he did tweet something to say that Wenger had said he'd rejoin the team, but on 25% chance, and the fact that he'd missed the week before, I thought they won't rush him back. Anyway, I'm getting distracted there. Just still hung up on the fact that 17 points went down the drain.
And then you've put Sané in, haven't you?
Yeah, and he's obviously didn't play that game. That was midweek. Did nothing last week, and has dropped 0.2 million.
Oh, that's
since
a
I
wound.
put it. So it's been a real comedy of errors there. I think keep strong with Sané. I think once this fixture's out of the way, he'll he'll return to he's your quality player in there, and I think he's a goal threat. I didn't watch the game against West Ham, but when I was following it kind of on the app, on just like the update, he was involved in lots of opportunities, lots of assist attempts, lots of shots on goals. Eventually those will convert to points. So you just got to keep the faith.
Okay, good stuff. Quigliano, we're keeping the podcast quite short this week. We are going to go to podcast extra time in a minute, but before we do that, I think we'll finish with the best feature of the standard pod, which is Stat Attack. I know you're a big fan of Stat Attack, aren't you?
The fact that, it's just the rhyming thing, isn't it? You've just chosen it because it rhymes. But carry on, mate. Let's get this out of the way.
I've given out most of the stats, but this is more of a quiz question for you. And this went down quite well last week. People like the quiz question style thing. So, Pep Guardiola was the second... Sorry, this is dreadful. I've not even prepared it properly. I don't even understand the question myself. Right, Pep Guardiola and this other manager became the second and third managers ever to win their first 5 games in the Premier League. Who was the second manager? It was someone that came in last season. So, someone who came in last season.
Sam Allardyce.
No, it's not. You're wrong. Craig Shakespeare. Craig Shakespeare of Leicester. The third ever manager to win their first 5 games in the league. That's unreal at Leicester.
Well, all I'll say there is poor old Ranieri.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was the one that did the business, really, wasn't he? So, anyway, quickly, that closes out the standard pod. We are going to be back with Podcast Extra in a second. If people are listening and they're not yet a member of fantasyfootballedge.co.uk, head to the website. You can sign yourself up. It's going to cost you a tenner for a whole 12 months of access. You're going to get every podcast extra time. You're going to get the last word, which is hand squeezed by me 90 minutes before every single deadline, game week deadline, and a load of other good stuff too, like your captain picks. And get yourself signed up. If not, we will see you next week. But for those that are joining us, just keep on listening.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast. 90% drivel, 9% ego, and 1% tips.